Hi, everyone. So for today's demonstration, this should be fairly quick, but I've had a lot of questions about this in the past, and I thought it might be good just to review how to add data when you have a latitude longitude coordinate. So this could apply to data that you would have perhaps in a CSV file or an Excel spreadsheet. Of course, if you've looked at any of our previous tutorials, you know that you can also import this data by street address using geocoding. But if you already have a latitude and longitude coordinate, today's video shows how to add this data directly into your map and then add labeling to your points. So to begin with, I have up at the new project screen here, my Simple GIS Client application. And I'm just going to create a new default GIS project. So I'll click on this default GIS project template. And this is going to create a new project for me. And at this point, I'll select a new base map for this project. And I'll just use the OpenStreetMap Internet Mapping Service as my base map. And as I double click on that tile and select it, you see that it's now added this in. And of course, I'm zoomed out to the full extent at this point in time. So really, to add this data as points on your map is really very simple. You just go to your Add Data as New Layer to Map tool, which is located in the upper left. It's the very first tool button to the upper left. And if you click on the drop down, it's the first menu item called Add Data as New Layer to Map. And as I select this menu, of course, I get our Add Layers dialog box that comes up. And so at this point, we're dealing with file-based data, so I'd make sure I have this tab selected. And I would navigate to the folder containing the data. And in this case, in my folder I'm using here, this demo folder, I see I actually have a CSV file and an Excel spreadsheet file. So you can do this with either CSV or Excel files. And they both work very similar. So if I selected the CSV file, I can just double click on the file. And it's going to ask me, it says, does first row contain field names? So it just wants to confirm that the first row has the column headings. In this case, it does. So I'm going to select yes. And then at this point, I would just select the columns that contain the longitude and latitude coordinates. And it will try and interpret, based upon the column headings, what it thinks are the columns containing the coordinates. And when it finds a match, it'll go ahead and select it for you. So I actually had a column that was abbreviated LON, which it thinks is the longitude coordinate, and a column named LAT for the latitude. So you see it already has those selected. Of course, I could change this if it wasn't correct and select a different column. But in this case, that is, in fact, the columns that contain the longitude and latitude coordinate. I don't need to mess with the layer projection. It is in WGS 84 longitude latitude. So I'm just going to select apply at this point, and I'll go ahead and add that as a layer into my map. If you noticed here on my table of contents to the left, I have this new layer now added, and the layer properties dialog box comes up where I can go ahead and change any settings if I wanted to, such as the name of the layer that appears here in my table of contents. I could change the legend, anything like that. For now, I'm just going to accept the defaults and click apply. And I'm going to close this dialog box so you can see these blue stars that appear. They're all kind of grouped down here. I can select this layer, right click on it and say zoom to layer to zoom to the extents of my points. And I see all of my points here that's been added to my map. Now, just to show you, this works very similar with the Excel file, just as with the CSV file. I'll come back and select add data as new layer to map. And when I do that, again, I can select an Excel spreadsheet. Again, I'm going to get a confirmation asking does the first row contain field names, and if it does, simply select yes. Now, one difference you may get with an Excel spreadsheet is if you had a spreadsheet that had multiple workbooks or worksheets in it, you may get another pop-up box asking you to select the worksheet that contains the data you're wanting to add to your map. So at this point, I only had one worksheet in this Excel spreadsheet, so I didn't get the pop-up. And now the data in your Excel spreadsheet needs to be formatted in simple table formatting, which means, simple column headings, and then each row underneath the column headings containing the data. You don't need any gaps or any kind of, rows or columns offset, any kind of different formatting like that. It may cause it to not read the table correctly. Just make sure that the data is in a simple table format. And so, again, it selected the longitude and latitude columns, which is correct for my longitude and latitude information. So I just simply click apply. And once again, I get the layer properties dialog box that comes up. I see that it has added the new layer to my map. And if I wanted to differentiate this, I could just go to my legend and change it. Instead of the default blue star, I can just double click on the symbol and select a new symbol from the palette. And I'll go down and select one of the teardrop symbols I have. I'll select a red teardrop in this case. Click OK and click apply. And now I'm going to close this dialog box. And I see that it's labeled or added those same points, now just using the red teardrop for the Excel data. I'm going to go ahead and turn one of these layers off for now. And so now these points are added and I have all of the full data. And let me just zoom in a little bit closer so we can see some of the data as it gets really close together on some of this and kind of overlaps. So if I was to select this CSV layer, which is the layer that I have turned on currently, and then use my View Feature Data tool and click on the point, I see all of the data that it brought in that's contained in that CSV file. And I can use this to also label my map. So I could double click on this layer to bring up the layer properties dialog box. I go to my labeling tab and I could label, for instance, the number. And then if I wanted this to be on the same line number, and under my field delimiter, I'm just going to click in this and I'm going to hit my space bar to add a space. That's just going to add a space on the line. So if I wanted to label multiple fields on a single line and I wanted to have a delimiter between the field data, I can use this field delimiter to insert that. So now if I select street, click on the number, and I'm going to click on the plus button, and I see that it appends it, the street field on the same line as the number. And if I wanted to see what this label looks like, I have the auto label is checked. So I'll just click apply. And I see that it has labeled the points and it has appended the values out of the two different fields, and it uses a space to delimit between the field values. And then I could also, if I wanted to double click, I can add additional lines for the label as well. If I go back to my labeling tab, and again, I'm going to come down now, and each point has a unique hash number. So I'm going to select the hash. And instead of clicking the plus button, I'll just use this button with the double arrows and I'll add it as a new line underneath the last line. So now I have a multi-line label. So I could click apply, and now I see how it labels that on the map as well. So again, as I said, this was a short demonstration today, but I know a lot of times there's this question has come up about just adding data directly that you have associated latitude and longitude coordinates with. And so just wanted to create this short demonstration illustrating how you go about doing that in the Simple GIS Client application. Again, I encourage you to visit our website. That website is simplegissoftware.com, all one word. Thank you. Have a great day.